All right, so welcome, welcome to our this course. If this course is, develop your first web app with Corvid by Wix. My name is Joe Burgess. I work at the Flatiron School, but I'll go into that more in a second. Thank you all for joining. Today and over the next 4 sessions, we're going to be creating an entire web app together. We're going to be effectively creating Airbnb for bikes. So allow you to post your bike and share your bike and rent other people's bikes. We're going to do that all in just 8 hours of lesson, which is pretty cool. For a few people who are asking, yes, we're going to record it. Yes, you'll be able to revisit it kind of whenever you want, all that. But let's get into kind of the day. So today, my quick agenda is very quick in slides, and then we're going to spend almost our entire time in Wix. So first of all, I want to do a quick introduction, who I am, who Flatiron School is, then a bit on how this course will work, right? And then finally, get into coding. As I said, most of today, I really want to be spent working in Wix, working in code, not in a slide deck. First things first, hi, my name is Joe. I'm the head of education, especially in our kind of enterprise and curriculum offerings here at Flatiron School. I'm part of the founding team. My personal background is in software engineering, so I'm a self-taught software developer, but I've also spent a lot of time doing iOS programming, Android programming, and time doing kind of Wix Corvid programming. When I Googled software engineering, this was the picture I got, which any of you are JavaScript developers, you can kind of see is just like some terribly unminified, old school JavaScript file. It's like true misery, but looks very cool, right? I feel like that's an important part of the world's perception of coding, is it has to look really intense, but in reality, when we work on code, it's usually much easier to read. A bit more about me. I said I'm the head of education for enterprise at Flatiron School. I was employee number 1 or 2 at the school, so I've been here a while. Got to see us grow from about 3 or 4 people all the way up to about 400. In addition, I live in New York City. I'm currently in my apartment in Brooklyn, New York. So this picture actually is not where I live, but this is where Flatiron School's campus is kind of right here by this park. And if you're ever in New York City, you should go to this park. Called Battery Park. I think it's actually the best park in Manhattan. It has this insane view of Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty, and it's just a beautiful park. You should go there if you're ever in Manhattan. And then I guess a few more things about me. I really love hiking and backpacking. This is a panorama I took from a few weekends ago at the top of Mount Marcy, which is the tallest mountain in New York. I was going to post a picture of me on top, but I think no one looks great after hiking 10 miles to the top of a mountain, and so it wasn't, I figured, the best foot forward I can put for you all. So here's, instead of a picture of me, a picture of what I was looking at, which was the Adirondacks in upstate New York. So really quickly, Flatiron School is the company I work for. We're a school that teaches software engineering, cybersecurity, and data science in an immersive format, both online and on campus. Our mission is to enable the pursuit of a better life through education, and we're doing that by creating a global campus of lifelong learners focused on making a positive impact. And so teaching courses like these in partnership with Wix is an exciting opportunity for us to get an opportunity to talk to lifelong learners such as yourself. You're learning new things, and Wix Corvid is one of those things. As I said, we teach 3 things: software engineering, data science, cybersecurity. We're in a bunch of locations all over the US. We teach online, and you should check us out, flatironschool.com. If you have any questions, email me, ask a question. I'd love to talk about Flatiron School. So how this will work, a few things, and then also there's been a bunch of good questions asked already, and so I will go into those as well. First is interactivity. I will be putting polls out to get people's feedback on things. I will be trying to ask for questions. My goal, I think a lot of online learning can feel like this kind of lean back and just watch TV like you were watching whatever kind of TV show you want to watch. Um, but I'm hoping it's interactive. I'm hoping you engage with our polls. I'm hoping you answer my questions in chat. I'm hoping you follow along. I'm going to do everything I can to make that as easy as possible for you. In addition, throughout this program, we're going to be learning how to learn. I'm going to teach you an incredibly tiny subset of Corvid, right? It's huge. I'm going to teach you a subset. I'm going to teach you my favorite features. I'm going to teach you, I think, the ones are the most powerful. But what I want you to leave here with is not just, here's how to modify a repeater in Corvid, but also, here's how to read the documentation that Corvid provides. Here's how to think about the kind of patterns that live in Corvid that you can then apply your existing knowledge to new things. So throughout this, we're going to be reading documentation, we're going to be Googling, we're going to be learning how to learn, not just here's this magical line of code. And then last, I want to talk about how you can follow along and recording and stuff like that. So first on recording, yes, this is going to be recording. It is recording right now. I see my red dot. It takes a bit for it to process and all that. So we'll get something out to you probably tomorrow with this recording. In addition, there's nothing you need to download, but in a second, I'm going to share a link out that you, if you want to follow along, you can. You don't have to. I recommend it. I think it's more fun. You can follow along. It's going to be a template that we're going to start with and we're going to work on together. And then in addition, I'm going to put together, and I'll share this in the chat, a text doc, which will have all of the code I'm writing so that you can just copy paste it in so there's no typos. Last but not least, I have you all here on a camera and a monitor, but I also have my notes and the Q&A and all that stuff on another screen. So if you see me looking over here, it's just kind of taking a look at the Q&A to make sure no one's asking questions. It's looking at my notes to make sure I'm doing everything right. And so that's what I'm looking at if I'm looking at it over here. Before I get going, any questions I can answer? The best way to ask me questions is through the Q&A functionality, which you should be able to, oops, not just yet, which you should be able to get by hitting the Q&A button in that kind of bar, usually at the bottom of your screen, like the Zoom bar. I'm gonna give you guys about 2 minutes to ask questions while I stop sharing just my browser and start sharing my whole screen. So let me do this, share screen, desktop 1. Can you all see? Hopefully nothing, just like a little gradient. Let me get. Hey, hey, Colton. We are going to go through environment setup a bit, and I'll show you how. It's gonna be really quick. You're just gonna, because it's all in browser, there's very little environment setup. All right, I'm just gonna answer some questions this way. All right, let me just keep answering these for a quick second. So in your opinion, if you're failing to Corvid, Stephanie, if you're fairly new to Corvid, you should, if you're new to Corvid but familiar with JavaScript, you definitely should follow along because I think you'll pick it up really quickly. If you're new to Corvid and new to JavaScript, it might make sense for you just to kind of watch and then take notes and watch the recording and follow along with the recording at your own pace because you may just go a little bit fast for that. All right. So I just answered that one live. yes, our school does offer beginner level JavaScript courses. Let me post a link real quick to them. One sec. And then super novice here, will I get much out of this course if I'm not proficient in JavaScript? Matthew, let me just respond to this. Especially today, you'll understand a lot more about Corvid and Wix. And the code is relatively simple for today. What I would recommend is if you're really new to JavaScript is I would follow along and watch the recording later. And follow along and watch the recording later and kind of go at your own pace. That's what I would do. And then we do offer courses. Here's our, I just posted in there, our beginner JavaScript course. And Sandeep, the Corvid course is not actually part of our core Flatiron School course. This is the only Corvid stuff we're doing right now. All right, I'm gonna get going. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna paste into the chat a link. And I'm going to open it up on my side as well. And what this is paste. And I just kind of get, can someone just do a quick chat that you can see this login page, Wix, all that? Sweet, thank you everyone, appreciate it. Wow, so many people here, that's great. All right, so I'm gonna paste this link in again, just to make sure you all see it. Let me grab it again. So go ahead and click on that link. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna get, if you have a Wix account, just log in. I'm gonna log into my account. Otherwise, you can sign up by hitting the sign up button. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna get dropped into a template that Wix and I created to get started, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna log in as my template account. And my password. And if you don't have a Wix account, you can always sign up. It's very quick. I think they just ask like 4 questions, like email, name, password, or 3 questions. So I log in, and it should drop you right into the Wix editor. And with this, before we get going, I'm going to ask our first poll, our first check of understanding with everyone. And what I want to do is I am going to submit a poll right now. You should be seeing it. It's pretty straightforward. I just want to figure out what's people's familiarity with Wix and with JavaScript. So you should be seeing it. Go ahead and fill it out as you see it. I really appreciate it. It allows me to kind of tweak a little bit of what I'm teaching to what you all need. I'll give you up to a minute, right? 22 seconds. It's very cool to see where all these, where you all are from. Thank you so much to the people in, I think it's Korea, who up at 6 a.m. They're calling in from the future. September 1st here, it's September 2nd there. I think that's great. All right. Wow, thank you everyone. 83% voted. That's really 85%. I really appreciate it. That means you all are super engaged right now. Thank you for answering my poll. I'm looking at, I'm gonna end the poll. Looking at the results, Seems like most people have either used the Wix stuff but never Corvid, or have never used Wix at all. So for those of you who are new to Wix, welcome. It blows my mind how much you can get done so quickly with Wix. So get excited. On JavaScript, it seems like most people they've done some tutorials but never built anything. Or they're fairly comfortable and have built a few things, which is great. As I said, we're going to move pretty quickly. We're going to assume you kind of know JavaScript. I'm going to do my best to kind of handle both. But we'll do our best. If you're new to JavaScript, it might not make sense to follow along. And what I would do if I were you is kind of watch and then watch the recording, and you can follow along with the recording because then you can pause me, right? So let's move forward. Let's move forward. This is our website. I designed it. So just to be, I think one way to show kind of the power of Wix, which really excites me, is that I am not a designer. I'm a software developer. I've been a software developer my entire life. I got into software development because I couldn't design anything. I could just make them work really well. And in about an hour, I used a template and converted the template into this, which is pretty impressive. I think it looks great. I got multiple compliments on it from people who know more than me, are designers here at Flatiron School. And it really shows kind of the power of what those templates plus a really great Wix editor brings. The app we're going to be building today is called Borrow a Bike, and it's Airbnb for bikes. The idea being you can list a bike. You can list a bike that you own that when you're not using, someone else could borrow. And you can find bikes around you and borrow bikes near you. So that's what we're going to be building over the next 4 sessions, right? It's the same time every day for the next 4 weeks. And here's our basics that we have. Just to kind of show you around, this is the Wix editor. You can move things. So if I wanted this to be over here, I can just move it. I probably don't, so I can Command Z. The biggest, most important buttons are save. So I'm going to save my new site. I'm going to call it Wix Corvid 1. 9 1. And I'm going to save it. As you can imagine, saving is incredibly important. So it's auto saves for you, but feel free to save whenever you'd like. And just to get things started, I'm going to hit preview. And this is a preview of your site. So here it is. Yours should look fairly similar to mine. I kind of explain how everything works. It's a bike sharing app. If we go to the bikes page, in theory, it's a little broken. So this is my list your bikes page, which allows you to add a bike. It doesn't work right now, but I've kind of built all the design for it. And you can click around and do kind of whatever you want. Right now, a lot of the site doesn't work. It's just templated. So we can spend more time on Corvid and less time on the Wix editor. All right, let's get back to my editor by clicking this green button up here. And here's what I want to get done today. Today, I want to so you can view our bikes. So we'll manually enter bikes, but let's just be able to view some bikes. And I'd like to do a quick, if we can get to it, hopefully a filter. So you can search. So if you're looking for Simona's bike, you can type Simona and that bike comes up. And I also want to make sure that we can do some slight tweaks to our bike display. By teaching those things, by accomplishing those things, we're going to teach a few different concepts. We're going to talk about some basics of how to use data within Wix, so how to use the content manager, data sets, all that. That's some Wix stuff. That's not in Corvid. We're then going to go into Corvid and talk about how to listen to events. So when someone types something into a forum, into an input box, how do you get that? We're going to talk about how to interact with your data, so your database, if you've done any database programming. interactive database from Corvid. And we're going to go over how to use Corvid to modify what's on the screen. All right. Pause for a quick second. I don't see any questions. I'm going to get going. So I'm in my editor here. Menus and pages. Here are my 2 dynamic pages. So this is the bikes all page. So this will list all of our bikes to borrow. We also eventually, and this will happen next week, get more into, these are just stock photos from the template, more into, this is what happens when you click on a specific bike. It'll say, here's the bike, the description, a picture of it, where it's located, and we'll be able to book the bike as well. For right now though, I want everyone to go to bike pages dynamic and then bikes all. And you should get dumped into here. Right? And great question from the anonymous attendee who just asked. Feel free to keep putting your questions in there. What I'll do is probably every 15 or so minutes, I'll take a 2 or 3 minute break for everyone to go get water and just catch up a little bit or play around and go through all the Q&A. All right, so feel free to just put them in there and I'll get to them when I get to them. All right, first thing I want to get done. I'm not touching Corvid yet. All I want is I want to make the idea of our database holding those bikes, right? With some basic information, where are they located, a picture, a title, a description. And then once I have that data set, I want to be able to display it. And we have the beginnings of that here, but I'll show you more in a bit. All right. So, hey, Ashley, what would you like me to repeat? Let's see if she responds. Or he responds. Oh, how do I get this on the homepage? Hey, Kate, we'll get to the repeater stuff in a second. I'm pretty sure I know why it's not showing up. We'll get to that in a sec. How to get to this from the homepage here, Ashley, go to this link and either log in or sign up. All right, I'm gonna keep going. All right, first things first, let's create our database. And everyone, don't worry if your repeater's not showing up. Hold on for a sec. If your repeater's not showing up, it's okay, we'll get to that in 1 second. First thing I wanna do is build our content. So I'm gonna go to my content manager over here on the left. And this is going to create a new collection. So as you can imagine, if you've done any database programming, this is a database. This is a database. The database works fairly similar to any other database. If you've ever used Postgres or MySQL or anything like that, it works very similar. If you don't think of it as a database, if you've ever used an Excel spreadsheet, you can think of your data as an Excel spreadsheet, right? And it holds all your data. It has rows and columns, and then you can display it through a repeater, which we'll do in a second. I know the repeater isn't showing for everyone. I'll get to that in a second, and we will show it in a second, I promise. All right, so I'm gonna create a new blank collection. I'm gonna call it bikes, capital B-I-K-E-S. For all this code to work, it's important that you use the exact same spelling and capitalization. So give the collection name, bikes, capital B-I-K-E-S. And what's the collection for? This is gonna be member-generated content. And the reason it's member-generated content is because the permissions are such that everyone can read it. Only members can add bikes. And then only you can modify the bikes that you added. And there's a whole bunch of other permissions, right? If we did a collection that was site content, it's anyone can view it, but no one can make it. Form submission means anyone can submit the data, right? But for us, we're going to do bikes, capital B-I-K-E-S, and we're going to do member generated content, and we're going to hit create collection. And bikes is created, right? You can see it autofills with some columns, so title, location, a few other things, image, description. These are stuff I put in. And for right now, we're good to go. So you go ahead and hit close, and you should have this bikes thing. All right. Now what we're going to do is in our page, we're going to turn on dev mode. So we're going to go up to the top. So it says dev mode, hit turn on dev mode. And you're going to get this, hit X, and all of a sudden you get a bunch of new superpowers. Right? And now you should start to see the repeater. It'll be grayed out, but you should be able to see it. And I'm going to close some of these things. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a quick poll out just to make sure everyone has done all the different steps. Go ahead and check all the ones that you've done. So once you turn on dev mode, you should get the repeater down here. David, that's interesting, because I mean, I'm doing the same thing. What's the best way to help you out? No, the repeater is this thing down here. It's a little grayed out, and it's just with the yellow and the bike name, all that. Interesting. That's weird. Once you turn dev mode on, you should see it. Maybe hit refresh. If not, for those of you who don't have the repeater, I'm going to keep going just because we have a lot of people. And what I'll do is I will post a video tomorrow morning with how to create that repeater for everyone. And David, that's great. If you already have your own, you can add. If you know how to do it, you can already add. You can add your own repeater. For those of you who don't, and it's not showing up, I'm not quite sure why. I'll investigate a bit, but I'll put together a video on how to make that, on how to make the repeater show up. All right, afterwards. All right, looks like most people have gotten there, which is great. Thank you. And now let's keep going. So we have a repeater, we have our bikes. I'm going to first connect. So what we want to do is, this is what a repeater does. A repeater takes the same template and replicates it for every item in your database. So in this case, our template, my template, excuse me, looks like this. I have an image where I'm going to put the bike image. I have this title where I'm going to put the bike title. I have here, which is going to be my bike description. I have here, which we'll get to in a later day, of how to do the bike distance, the distance from where you are, and we're going to use Corvid to find out where you are, to where the bike is, and then a button here to hit book now so you can go to the booking page. This is the template that we can then use, that will then automatically, Wix will do this for us. It'll make a new template for every single one of our bikes that we've created. So what we need to do is, now we have the template, which is the visual parts, we need to connect our repeater template up to the bikes data set. All right, and so we're going to do that with by clicking on our repeater. And if you don't have a repeater, I'm happy to, you can, I'm going to put together a video on how to make sure you have the repeater. And if it still doesn't work, you can email me and I will make sure you get up and running over the next week, and we'll find a time to talk. All right. So if you don't have it, just kind of watch and follow along as much as you can. I apologize. We have a repeater. I'm clicking repeater, and I'm going to connect to data. See this little squiggle? I'm going to click that, connect to data set. We don't have a ton of options here, but we're going to choose bikes because it's the data set we want to connect to. And it's actually pretty cool. All the components of our template, the gallery, the header text, the description text, this little piece of art, the distance and the button are all listed right here. So without any effort, a little bit of effort, we can grab the gallery, say bikes, and image source connect to the image, which is awesome. Go back to all connections, go to our header text, bikes, text connected to the title, back to all connections. And then for our description text, I'm going to connect it to description. And then finally for our button, when you click on it, I want to go to bike's title. Bike's title is the information for the specific bike that you clicked. Oh, it looks like Danny said, a quick tip, the repeater wasn't showing up for me, and I turned off hidden items and turned it back on again, and it worked. So yeah, so the repeater is hidden right now. So you should be able to. So that's a good idea. I'll show that in a second. So let me repeat the steps really quickly. So what I did is I clicked to connect to data. Then I said connect to bikes. Then on the gallery, I clicked it. I just clicked that. And then I chose connect to bikes. And then I said the image source should be the image. And you can see that this is a kind of intelligent, right? It knows that you can't just attach the description to the image. Then I go back to all connections, and I just kept going. So I went to that header text, clicked on it, chose bikes, and then title text. Back to all connections, my description text, connected it to bikes, connected description. All connections, button, bikes, click action connects to the bikes title. So what I'm going to do is, another thing I'm going to do is, I think it looks like, for those of you who the repeater isn't showing up, try this. Go to Tools and select this hidden elements. Make sure this is checked. And if you make sure that's checked, I think the repeater will show up. So we went to Tools on the top and then selected, made sure hidden elements was selected. And I think that'll also answer your question, Andy. Josh. And if it's not working, try unselecting it and then reselecting it. Maybe that'll work. Cool. Oh, nice. That works. All right. I'm so happy that works for everyone. All right. And so for one last thing, remember the way I did that was I clicked this connect to data and just connected like bikes. All right. I'm going to keep moving forward. Chantel, I'm not sure why it's grayed out. I'm going to keep moving forward, Chantel. If you want, you can play around a bit and maybe delete it and recreate your data set, and maybe that'll make it work again. Just make sure it's named bikes, capital B-I-K-E-S. All right, so now we have it. Let's hit preview, and nothing shows up. All right, let's go back to our editor. What I want to do is see how it's grayed out. It's because this is hidden. So we're going to right click. We're going to go to, I'm going to open this up, sorry. And select my repeater. So I click this little bottom bar that says bikes all. And we're going to unselect hidden. And so now it should no longer be grayed out, and you should be good to go. So what I did was I clicked this bottom bar, selected my repeater, and then unchecked hidden. Now when I hit preview, it still doesn't show up. Any ideas why? How many bikes is in our data set? Go to Content Manager, bikes. Zero bikes. There's no bikes. Of course it doesn't show anything. There's no bikes. So what I want to do is I want to add some bikes. I am going to paste another link in the chat with a CSV file that you can download. Make sure the link works. Great. And yeah, so we're going to go to this link. And this has a bunch of information. And we're going to go to File, Download, Download as its comma separated values. And that'll download it to your computer. So I did File, Download, comma separated values. To download it to your computer. And then once we have it downloaded, we're going to go back to Wix. We're going to hit these three little things, import items, choose a file, Wix Corvid bikes, and it should just kind of auto do everything. Hit next, hit import, and ta-da, we have 2 items. All right, so now I have 2 items, and I'm going to hit preview now. Cross my fingers everything works, and it does. As you can see, our description is a little bit crazy. We'll get to that in a second, but we have 2 items. I'm going to take a pause right now. I'm going to put out another poll to see how many people got the bikes to show up. And answer some questions. All right, it seems like the #1 question is how do we get that CSV all working again? And I know, there's a lot of steps here. If you kind of lose me, don't worry, we're sending the recording. The best thing you can do is look at the recording tomorrow and kind of pause and go along with it, right? So don't worry if you lose me, it's okay. I'll do my best to keep answering questions as I go along, but remember there's always a recording, so you'll always have all of this stuff. And afterwards, if you want to email me, you can email me, and I'll see if I can help you out. All right. The biggest question of the day is how do I rebuild the data set? So let me show you how to do that again. Back to editor. The way you do it is I'm at my screen here. I hit the content manager on the bottom left. Then I go to bikes. This loads up. I hit the 3 dots right here. Import items. Choose a file. And I choose the file that I downloaded. And then you hit kind of next a few more times. All right. That's how you do it. Hopefully you got some items in there. If it still doesn't work, just add in some stuff yourself. So you can add in items by hitting new item and filling this out. Right? Okay. So we have our repeater. But right now, what it does is it shows all bikes. Down the road, we're going to want to build a feature that allows us to only show bikes that are nearby. And to do that, we need to learn how to filter our bikes via Corvid, via the code. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to begin to write our very first lines of code. All right. First things first, what I want to do is I want to put an input field in there, which allows us to get what people type as a search form. So to do that, I hit the add on the left. Then I scroll down to, let's do input. And one of my favorite things about Wix is it's crazy how many options you have here. Text boxes, rich text boxes. I mean, it's not just like normal text. This has bold, italics, underline, like it's a whole thing. Wix, with Wix and Corvid especially, you start to really be able to add and create a very, very full-featured product web app and very quickly. And it's just one of my favorite things is that you can just so quickly get up and running to the point where you can now actually play with it and launch your idea and build your site. It's something crazy. You can do a reCAPTCHA, right? One of those things where it says like, I'm not a robot. It's crazy. Without like any effort, you just drag it on. It's so cool. But we don't want any of those things right now. We want something very simple. We want a text input. And I like the look of this top one. So I'm going to drag it on. And just drag it on. And let's center it. There we go. Center it in the page. And there we go. So now we have a text input. Let's hit preview to make sure it still works. It does. It doesn't do anything, but it exists. So I'm going to go back to my editor. And first things first, what I want to do is my goal right now is when someone, let me show you actually, when someone hits, types, Ale or specialized, maybe they love specialized bikes, and hit enter, it filters so only this one specialized Ale comes up. So when I hit specialized Ale, when this one comes up, should only bring this one up. If I type Joe is great, nothing should come up, right, when I hit enter. So the first feature we need to implement is figure out when people type things into my text box, then see whenever they type enter. When they do type enter, I'm then going to see what they put in there, search my bikes data set, grab the result of that search, and inject it into my repeater. So go over the steps again. First step, we want to know whenever you type anything into this text editor, into this text field, then we want to find out if you pressed enter. So whenever you press enter, if you've pressed enter, then we grab all of the text you wrote. So if you had wrote Ale, it would grab Ale, right? And we're going to use that term to search our bikes data set, grab the result, and put it and show it in the repeater, right? So it should only grab the Ale bike if we typed Ale. All right. So let's go to the editor and let's write some code. First things first, I need to listen to an event. So those of you who know JavaScript, you know they have events. There's the click event is the most popular for a button, but pretty much what an event is it's whenever something happens, that's when we run a line of code. So what we want is whenever someone enters any text into that text box, we run our code. And so to do that, I'm going to right click on my input. Actually, I can just open up this down here. And I have these event handlers on blur, on change, on click, on double click, on focus, on input, key press, so many different things. What I want to do is I want to add an event handler to the right event, to an event that grabs every single time someone presses a key. Does that make sense? So before we do that, because we're about learning how to learn, I'm going to show you how to Google for what all these event means. We're going to go to a new tab, and I'm going to search text field events, Wix, Corvid, text box. Whoops. Properties, functions. Okay, so here they all are. And so as you can see, we have a little explanation of each one. Let's go to, I don't know, on focus, and it has you all the description of it working. Now, one of my favorite things, another thing I love about Corvid is the documentation is really stellar. So if you ever don't know how to do anything, Google what you want to do, and then Wix Corvid, and I bet something comes up. So what I want you to do is after you do that quick Google and hopefully you pulled up the site, I want you to take a look at this, and I'm going to put out another poll. Which event do you think we should be handling that will get us every time someone hits the keys? Every time someone hits any kind of, types anything into our field. And I'll give you another 30 seconds. All right, I'm gonna end the poll, and looks like most people got it right on key press, exactly. And if you can take a look at our documentation, we can see add an event handler that runs when the cursor is inside the element, inside the input element and a key is pressed. Perfect, right? Whenever someone types something, it'll call our on key press function. So let's go do that. So I'm gonna go to my code here, and I'm gonna select, here it is, on key press. Click that. It auto puts in a function name for us. I'm gonna hit enter. Boom. As I see on the left, the first bit of JavaScript code was just created. One of my favorite parts about this is, it's just a JavaScript function. If you've written JavaScript before, this should look completely normal. In fact, not only does this look normal, this also looks normal to what a normal JavaScript click event function would look like as well. Right? You get passed in the event. If you're a JavaScripter, it looks the same, right? I mean, they should look really familiar. That's the powerful thing about Corvid, is that they took the power of JavaScript, which many of you, as you said in that survey, already know, and added on the Wix kind of magic, right? Which means not only you take your existing knowledge and you superpower your existing knowledge. That's why I know I was really excited about the opportunity to partner with Wix, because I just love taking, I think a lot of software development is reducing to previously solved problems. And what Wix does great is, especially Corvid, is it reduces kind of Wix specific things to problems you've solved before in JavaScript. Right? In the end, that's what programming is. It's about reducing really big, complex, difficult problems into problems you've solved before. So when we look at this, it looks like a normal function. I got a few questions, which is what's the difference in key press and on input. They're pretty similar. You can use either one. I like on key press, but you can use either one. Let's just make sure it works. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do what everyone's favorite thing to make sure something works. Hello from key press. Right, I did a console.log. I did a console.log, hello from key press. And just like every other thing we develop, we want as minimum amount of time between when you type code and when you see it run. So we write one line of code and we're gonna hit preview. Some, I think, new developers try and sit and just like beat their head against a wall and write lines and lines and lines and lines and lines of code before running it. Don't do that. Write a line of code, run your code. Write a line of code, run your code. So if I run my code here, all of a sudden the developer console pops up, and every single time I type anything, you can see hello from key press comes in. Right? Pretty cool. And my favorite, I think it's nice about Corvid is, look, you hit line 6, and it automatically brings you back into the editor and puts you right on that line that was console logging. So you always know where your console logs come from. That's actually better than regular JavaScript. Sometimes it's a pain to find where all of your console logs are. So now we know that our key press is connected to our input correctly. First, before we keep moving, I want to change some of the settings here. So I'm going to select my input and hit the settings button, and I'm just going to change the bigger. Change the placeholder text to enter type. So type your search term and press enter. There we go. All right. Back to the code. So we did hello from key press. Now we want to do a bit more investigation. All right. What I want to do is I want to console log what the heck this event is. Corvid does some cool stuff where if you put your mouse over it, it says event, keyboard event. So I could Google this. I could Google Wix Corvid keyboard event. And here's everything that comes in. All the properties, all this stuff. I think the documentation is stellar, but I sometimes get bored by documentation. So I'm just going to console log the event itself. So we console log the event. I'm doing console log event, hit preview. And I'm going to type HELLO. And so you can see each time I typed a text, I got a console log. So here's the event. It's a key press. You can see it was typed on this at 1. The current value is nothing. The thing I pressed was H, right? And then we saw another one. I pressed E, right? Key E. Then key L, key L, key O. And you can see within target, we can see it start to build up. So that's what the event has. The event has both the input field itself and the key that was pressed that caused that event to happen, right? What triggered that event? So taking a look at this, what I want to do now is actually let me do it. Press enter. Press enter. Hope you heard that. And you can see key enter code 13. There's a bunch of different properties here, target, context, all kinds of things. I'm going to put a poll out. Which property of this event should we check for to see when our user pressed the enter key? So I'm going to launch a poll. Go ahead and make your best guess. To whoever raised their hand, I think it was just someone. If you have a question, just put it in the Q&A. I'm going to grab my water bottle. I've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes now. Give it 30 seconds, take a guess. All right, and we are at a minute. All right, so it seems like most people went for the key, right? Which makes sense. It says key enter. Respond to Josh's question real quick. The recordings will come up tomorrow. Next class is in a week, which gives you a whole week to re-catch up from everything we did. All right, so everyone said, most people said, let's look at the key, which is enter. That is correct. A few people said the code, 13. And some of you said the event type, which is key press. It's not going to be the event type because if you look, every single type is key press because it's always a key we're pressing, but only sometimes it's the enter key. And then last one is the existence of the event object. It won't be that one because the event object is always there. See, every time we type, no matter what, a new event object gets created. And what we're looking for right now is something that's unique to us pressing the enter key. And both of you, the people who wrote code or key, got it right. Code is 13, key is enter. I personally like using code over key because I find in different nationalities, the key string may be different, maybe return instead of enter, or it may be different languages, where the code is usually consistent. So we're going to use the code to be 13. So I'm going to go back to my editor. And I'm going to say, and we're just going to be building this up, right? If event.code is 13, I'm going to console.log, you pressed enter. Pretty straightforward code here. Yet again, this is not Corvid. This is just JavaScript, right? We're going to hit preview, and let's see if this works. So it should not console log if we are pressing any other key, but it should console log if we press enter, right? So let's see if that works. All right, no console logs. I'm going to press enter. Ready? The big enter. Nice, it worked. Enter, 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 enter. It works. That's great. But as you can see, if we go down here, nothing changes if I don't press enter, but it does change if I press enter. So we now know our if statement works. Right? Next thing up, we know our if statement works. Let's grab, now we want to use Wix Corvid to get, the actual text there because we're going to use that to search. So if you remember, let me print out the event again just so you can kind of remember what this is. We're going to hit preview, hit enter, the event, target, the value, see ASDFAS, that's what's in the actual input field. So we now know that it's in the event target value. So go back to our editor and now event target value, hit preview, hit enter, and it prints out the code. So I'm gonna do a quick pause. Pretty straightforward code right now because we're about to take it up a notch. All right. We now have our search value. We now know when to listen to event to the return key. Let's actually do the Corvid stuff. Let's actually search for items here. So what I'm going to do is, first things first, I'm going to import the Wix data package. So I'm going to copy paste this code. So I did import Wix data from Wix-data. All this is really important that it's exactly the things you type here. So I'm going to paste this into the chat. You can copy paste that in. And what's that doing is that's now mean creating a new variable called Wix data, or a new constant called Wix data that has all the functionality of Wix data. Let's Google Wix data. Wix data Corvid. And as usual, we get a stellar API. And you can see there's a bunch of different things you want to do. But what I want to do right now is I want to query our database. I want to query our data. And I want to look for something that has a search term. So if I take a look at all these different functions, save, filter, get, insert, filter might be right, take a look. That one's good. We actually can use this one, but in the interest of working on a few other things, I'm going to try query. So I know filter will work for what we're doing, but I'm going to teach you query because we're going to use it in a later session. And also, it's just a lot more powerful. There's a bunch of other things here: save, sort, truncate, all kinds of stuff. So query. The query function builds a query on the specified collection and returns a Wix data query object. The return object contains the query definition, which is typically used to run the query using the find function. So here's a great code example. As I said, this documentation is stellar. So always take a look at documentation. If you've been a JavaScript developer for any amount of time, it should be pretty straightforward. So Wix data.query my collection. So that's going to be, in our case, bikes. And it just does a find. It's not quite right. We want to do a bit more. So I'm going to actually take a look at this Wix data query, which now has all these other functions, which is and, ascending, between, contains, count, descending, distinct, ends with, equal. I mean, there's so many things. This is what allows us to actually query the database. And specifically, we're going to use contains, which finds a query filter to match items whose specified property value contains a specified string. So if you click on that one, you can kind of see, so Wix data.query my collection dot contains description, some words, like looking for some words, dot find, and then dot then, and then we get the results. So let's write some code. One tip, I love just copy pasting from documentation. So I'm going to copy and paste, and then get my so you all can see it. Yep, I'm on it, I'm on it, I'm on it. No problem, Kate. All right, this isn't going to work just yet. First things first, are we querying a collection called my collection? What's the name of our collection that we're going to be querying? Yes, Josh from McLean. I'm from McLean. Bikes. So capital B, bikes. And then we want to search, I mean, we can search whatever we want, but in this case, what I want to search is I want to search the title property of our bikes. So on this first item is actually what you want to search. So I'm going to search title. And it's important, this is all lowercase. And then what is my search term? Anyone want to take a guess on the search term that we want to search for? Because it's in our code already. Yeah, Danny, exactly. It's event.target.value. Copy, paste. And then we're going to find it. And then we have to do something with it. So now we're going to get into, this is where I think if you've been doing some JavaScript, hopefully what we've done so far makes sense. If you're really new to JavaScript, though, we're about to get into some asynchronous programming, which is one of the most important concepts of JavaScript, but also, frustratingly, like everything that's important, one of the more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to find returns what's called a promise, which means it takes a while to happen, as you can imagine. Doing this search takes a while. And we're going to use .then. This one's a little hard, so I'm just going to write it ourselves. And we're going to say .then res. We're going to do an arrow function. And an open bracket, close bracket. Make sure I get all of my brackets right. And just to show off that this is working, we're going to console.log res. So here's the full thing, which I'm going to copy into the chat right now. Now, as I said, this is, so for those of you who know JavaScript, find returns a promise, which takes a while to resolve. It then resolves it in this .then block. For those of you who don't fully understand async, just know that this is how you have to use it. And the results are only available between this curly brace and this curly brace. If you want more, Google. I'll post a link to some more information on how to use promises. Let's see if we can find a good one. I think this is an okay one. Anyways, Google stuff on promises. This is what's going on here. Yet again, this is just regular JavaScript though. So we're now using Wix data.query bikes contains title. Then we want to find all those things. And Aaron, if you're getting an error that says Wix data is not defined, make sure this line at the top is there exactly correct. And I'll paste that line again in the chat. And now let's preview. LA, hit enter. And you can see it. You just notice that? I don't know if you noticed that, but it immediately printed LA because that was fast. Then it took a bit. And then it printed out this thing, which is our all the data. So you can see it grabbed only the one with the title specialized LA. Right? Sweet. So now that I know I have my result, and also if I search for something, let me, I can show you. If I search for, boop, there's, nothing there, right? So what we're gonna do is go back to our editor. And now what I want is I have this result, but I want to put it into my results table. So let's Google again how to modify repeater Wix Corvid. Let's see if we can find a result together. All right. Oh, sweet. So $W my repeater.data equals bracket bracket. And it looks like there's a few different ways they kind of keep resetting .data. So let's see, maybe, I bet there's, yeah, here's an API reference. And okay, data. Sensor gets the repeater data. That makes sense, right? So that's the data that actually lives in our repeater that our repeater is showing. So it says the repeater's data is stored as an array of objects. Each object in the array must contain a unique _ID property, which is used to match the object's data to the individual public. So pretty much what that means is we can grab our repeater, grab its .data property, and set it to our new data. But you've noticed for the first time, we were introduced to $W. $W is, if anyone's used jQuery, you know how the $ is how you kind of start to work with jQuery functions? In Corvid, $W is how you work with Corvid functions. So most of the and Corvid kind of DOM functions, right? And then you'll see here, it's pound my repeater. As you can imagine, this grabs the repeater with the ID my repeater. All right, so let's go work with this. So what I want is I'm gonna have to do $W. And then the ID of my repeater is results table. And I can see that because it says so right here. So I'm going to do pound results table, capital T. And then I'm going to do .data equals. And for my next question, I'm going to ask you what to put there. So actually, before I do that, let me comment this out. Console log res, and hit preview just so you can all see. Type LA. Here's the res. Here's what's in res. I'm going to launch a poll. What should we put into our results table.data? Remember, this is what res is putting out over here. What, remember, and data wants an array of the data itself. All right, looks like most people got it right. It's res.items. Right, I know that because this is res, this is items. So I'm gonna hit back to editor. All right. Oh man, it's exciting. It's the moment of truth. All right, we're gonna hit preview. So I'm gonna wait a second. Items, hit preview. And let's see if it works. LA and hit enter. There we go. If I type beep boop, some random words, it gives me nothing. And then the other bug I think was a giant. So if I hit giant, it gives me that. Sweet. this works. This is now doing our own filtering and sorting. And the way we're going to use this is in coming lessons. What I'm going to do is we're going to use Corvid to find the browser's current location using kind of standard HTML5 geolocation stuff. Then we're going to use that data, compare it to the location of each bike that each bike's location, and we're going to try and find everything, and we're going to use the Google Maps Directions API to show you what all the bikes are that are super close. So now we've done the beginnings of this, what I actually want to show you is the end result of what this is going to look like, so that it kind of makes a bit more sense. All right, and Dan, I'll post up the code. Here's the code. Actually, you know what? I'll publish a website, the finished website, and we'll include that in a follow-up. All right, but we're going to use this to show all of the bikes close to you. Okay. I have half an hour. I'm going to do one last thing before we call it quits and we talk again. And a reminder, I will send all this recording around. What we're going to do is, in the same way that you clicked a template this time, if you weren't able to catch up this time, we're going to use another template for next time, which has all this filled out, so you can immediately start next time you join. All right. So if you didn't catch up today and you don't have a chance to catch up over the week, that's okay. We're going to try and you'll be able to catch up immediately on your next time you join. All right. So let's do one last thing, which is hit preview. I think this looks terrible. Super long description. We just don't need it. But rather this work is, let's do 2 lines, 70 characters, and then a ... and see, and have it kind of truncated. Does that make sense? So instead of all this stuff, I'm just going to truncate it if it's over 70 characters. So let's go how to do that. So first things first, what I'm going to do is I want to insert myself. I want to insert my code into effectively what is the display code for each item in my repeater. So let me say that again. I want to insert my code into the display code of our repeater. And Danny, I hope you're able to see my code. This is everything right here. It's all this. So to do that, I'm going to select my repeater, and I'm going to actually connect to a new event handler called onItemReady. Click it, hit enter, and you'll see it adds a whole new function just underneath our other one. As usual, it's a pretty straightforward function. What I always do with these is, my first thing I do is I print out what I print all out what all the variables are. So console.log item, console.log item data, console.log index. And just to make things a little easier to read, I'm going to do console.log, like a little separator. So I connected my onItemReady to this function, and I'm just printing out the inputs. So I hit preview. Let's see what we get. It got called twice. I can see this by the divider. You can see the index was 0, then 1, which makes sense. And the item is the item. Cool. So here's our description, right? Here's our description. So just to make sure everyone understands, I want to do another poll. I want to make sure everyone gets what is the thing we're trying to truncate the description of our bike. Taking a look at this, which one is a description, whoops, for the specialized alley? There's going to be two questions, which is how many times did the item ready function get called? And what's the description for the bike name specialized alley? All right, we're at 40 seconds on the clock, and we got 20 more seconds to go. Two questions. How many times did the item ready function get called? And what's the description for the bike name specialized alley? Which is the type of bike I have. It's a great bike. I go for bike rides a lot to the Rockaways or to Coney Island. Like one of the best breakfasts in the world. Bike all the way to Coney Island and you have breakfast on the boardwalk to watch the sunrise. Fantastic. It's like one of my favorite New York City things to do. All right, it's been about a minute, 14 seconds. Looks like most of you got it right. The description is specialized budget road bike, has a lightweight frame and all carbon fork, blah, blah, blah. And the item ready got called twice. It gets called once for each item in our items, in our data. And it looks like, the money, right, is the stuff we want is here in description. So back to editor. So what I'm going to do now, just to make sure we're all on the same page, is I'm going to grab the description itself, hit preview, and there's my two descriptions. So it looks like everything's working. And I'm going to go back to the editor. And does anyone know what the JavaScript code is? And remember, pure JavaScript code is to truncate a string. I'm going to put out a poll. I want to truncate it to 70 characters. And you can Google if you want, of course. Remember, the coolest thing about Corvid is it's just JavaScript. So this is just a JavaScript string. All of the JavaScript string functionality that you know and love exists for this. So I'm going to give you another 50 seconds. Another 20 seconds. Three, two, one. All right, ending the poll. Looks like about half and half. Or a bunch of you wanted to use a truncate function, a bunch of you wanted to use a substring function. Remember, it's just JavaScript. So if you Google truncate JavaScript string, and look at any of these things, what you'll see is that there actually is no function named truncate. You have to use substring. So everyone who did that's correct. Any of these resources on how to do it are all work. Yet again, it's a pretty cool thing about Corvid is there's not reinventing the wheel where it's like some new magical language. It's just some modifications on JavaScript. So you have to use substring, kind of like what they use here. And the right answer is substring. So dot substring, and then it's 0 to 70. The first input is where to start, and the last input is where to stop. So you're going from the very beginning to 70 characters in. We hit preview. Let's see if this worked. There we go. Right. Sweet. So I hit back to editor. And then I want to add that kind of dot, 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 preview. And there you go. We have a little dot, dot, dot. So you can tell there's more to it. So I'm doing item.data.description.substring from 0 to 70, and then I just tack on a dot, dot, dot. Okay, this is great, but we're not actually getting our description into the repeater, right? If you look at the repeater, it's still super long. We're just console logging it. So let's do some Googling. Let's say modify element in repeater Wix Corvid. And if we Google around, here's an example. All right, sweet. So, okay, so this is an example. So on item ready, item data, $ item, repeated ID dot text equals item. So it looks like repeated text. It looks like there's something we can do with this $item. If we look at the forum, which has some good questions. Yeah, it looks like there's the $item. If you keep reading some of these forum things, what you're going to end up on is the way to do it is $item is in the same way that we used up here, we used $W to then grab a results table. You can use $item within our item ready function to grab a specific thing in our item template. So I want just this bike description. What is the ID of just this bike description? If I click it, I see on the right here, ID is bike description. So I'm going to say bike description. Really good autocomplete. That's awesome. And looking again at some of the other stuff, right? If we look at some of the documentation, we can see it's about the .text property. So I'm going to do description.text, and just to see if it works, I'm just going to set it equal to equals testing 1, 2, 3. Preview. Whoops. What did I do wrong? Yeah, I can cheat and look at my solution. But what did I do wrong? Bike description.text. Oh, I know I did wrong. Yeah, Naili is right. So what I'm doing is I'm doing item bike description.text equals testing 1, 2, 3. That's great, but the visuals, the kind of the Wix editor is overruling what I'm doing in code. So what I need to do is I need to click on my bike description, do my little squiggle, and disconnect it. So I'm going to do this and just hit choose. So it says not connected. So to show you again, I selected our text, hit our little squiggle, and I disconnected. Spikes, but text connects to not connected. So now it's not connected to anything. Hit preview, and I go testing 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Naili. We all make mistakes. No matter how many times you try never to make a mistake, you will always make a mistake. I promise. For any of you beginning developers, it doesn't go away. It'll happen less, and you'll usually catch your problems more often, a little bit faster. But making silly mistakes like I just did never goes away. But thank you, Naili, for catching me. I appreciate it. So back to editor. So now I know it works. Actually, I'm going to show you all again. See, testing 1, 2, 3. Back to editor. But I don't want testing 1, 2, 3. What I want is item data, just given it a substring. Here we go. Copy. Oops. Paste. And let's get rid of our console logs. Hit preview. And you can see it now is doing a much more intelligent truncating of this, and it's doing a dot, dot, dot. All right, that is everything for today. I guess first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came. I really, really appreciate it. What we're going to do is we have a bunch of follow-ups. So one, right after this and a bunch more times, we're going to send out a survey to you all just about today, seeing where everyone's learning. Yeah, David, I can add the full code. Seeing where everyone's learning zone is. And the way at Flatiron School we think about this is learning zones are either comfort zone, which means this is easy, go faster, go faster. Stretch zone, or the learning zone, which is like, it's beyond my, I'm getting pushed, but I'm not scared. I'm not too comfortable. And then panic zone, which means this is too hard. Oh my God, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. Right? So that's what we're going to send. We're going to send that survey around. I'm going to send all this code around. And then tomorrow we're going to send the recording of all of this. A few other notes. The next class is same time, same place, same link, same password, same everything. 1 week from today, right? So it'll be, what is that? Make sure I get the date right. It's going to be the 8th. So the 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. What we're going to do is, if you can get a chance to catch up and keep playing with this on your own, go for it. If you don't get that chance, then don't worry about it. We're going to have the solution set for you to start with next session. So if you missed today, don't worry about it. Solution set next session. And the recordings are going to be emailed to you. Recordings will be emailed to you. Everything's going to be emailed to you. And you can always respond to those emails, which actually are my email, better for worse. So if you have any questions, feel free to send an email to me, and I'm happy to answer what questions I can. So thank you all. I really appreciate you all for coming. I'm going to answer some of these questions that came through. And look out for an email with the recording tomorrow morning. And I'm also probably going to send around kind of what the final product is going to look like. So I'll see you all in a week. Email me if you have any questions. Just respond to an email that's going to get sent out in the next few minutes. Fill out the survey. Please, please, please fill out the survey. And it was great talking to you all. So I'm going to answer these questions, and then I'll end everything for everyone. So let me